Hey everybody, it's the Married Man here. Today we're going to cut the plastic on this KT1015 Kobalt table saw that was given to me as a Father's Day present, and we're going to assemble it. Going to cut the tape here. Open it up. Find the instruction book. Get rid of that. And on second thought, I'm going to take a break, read that instruction book, then I'm going to show you how to put this together. The first step, according to the instructions, is to cut the corners of the box. You'll need a razor blade and cut all four corners. You can start at the top or at the bottom, but you want to cut down the sides so that you can lay the box out flat. This is all just part of the unpacking step that you'll find in the instructions. You'll need to read your own instruction book in case they make any changes. When all four sides are cut, you should be able to lay down the sides. Before starting assembly, we'll need to separate the two trays in the box by lifting the top tray off. In the top tray, you'll find all the legs, the blade guard, the handles, the blade itself, your throat plate, the wrench that you will need, knob, all the hardware that you will need for the assembly, and of course this thing that really looks high quality, and the anti-kick claws. In the bottom tray, you will find the housing, the fence, the wheels, and some other items to assist with the assembly. For step 2, you will need to get part K from the lower tray. Part K is the wheels. So we have those. You will also, from the upper tray, need to get part J, which will be this part right here. And the instructions say to get part KK and JJ, but in mine, these were already attached. It's the washers that go on the legs, as well as the nuts which hold the washer on. To continue step 2 of the table stand assembly, you will need a 1/2 inch wrench or ratchet for this assembly. You will need in my case, remove the nuts that are holding the washers on. With one washer on the post, you will orient the wheel. The wheels come with 6 spokes on one side with a longer extension here, and what looks like 3 spokes on the other side. You want the 3 spokes to be towards the outside. So you have a washer, then the wheel, then another washer, then your nut. Same type of orientation on the other side. You have a washer, then the wheel, 6 spokes towards the inside, another washer, and then the nut. Then you will use your wrench or ratchet to tighten. Once complete, we will set this assembly to the side for later use. For the next step, we go back to our top tray and we get the crossbar marked R. We get these 2 legs that are bent with the rubber at the bottom from both sides. And we're going to need 2 of the 2-inch bolts. Now, whenever we're looking at the pack of hardware, we don't want to get the 2-inch bolt confused with the cap screws. So, a bolt, it's going to have threads the whole way, be 2 inches long, have a nice head on it. A cap screw would be very different in that it has a cap over the head. So we do not want those. With this orientation, I'm taking a 10mm ratchet and attaching the cross piece as such. At the end of the top tray, you will find part S, which is the left leg end stop. We will need this for our next step. We will go back to our hardware and we will look for the 1.5 inch cap screws that we were discussing earlier. The 1.5 inch cap screw will look like this. It has a rounded cap on one end, has a squared section to prevent rotation, followed by threads the rest of the 1.5 inches. We need 2 of these, and we need 2 of the nuts that go to them. With a 13mm wrench or socket, we will attach this to the end of our assembly, align it, use the cap screws and we will tighten it down. In our next step, we'll attach the handles, which are marked I1 and I2 in the box. We'll need to remove these from the upper tray. We will also need 2 more of those 1/2 inch cap screws and 2 more of the nuts to make this assembly. With the table saw still in the lower tray, we will come and attach part I1, which is a handle, on the left-hand side, looking at the table saw. And then we will insert I2 into the right-hand side. And we will attach with the cap screws and nuts. Again, this is our 13mm ratchet. But a 13mm wrench or an adjustable wrench could be used. We now have a completed leg assembly, and we will be attaching this to the table saw, which remains in the second tray. To do that, we're going to need 2 3-inch carriage bolts, 2 of the included spacers, and 2 of our nuts. The leg assembly goes in this orientation to the table saw. The 3-inch carriage bolts will go in from the outside towards the center of the saw. A spacer goes between the 2 pipes so that the 3-inch carriage bolt will feed through it. Then a nut goes on and must be tightened. The same occurs on both sides. Remember, the spacer goes between the pipes and is held there by the carriage bolt. You may have to lift the leg assembly slightly to get it to feed in. Once it feeds in, it feeds through rather easily and can be secured with the nut. Now we're going to attach the wheel assembly we put together earlier to the leg assembly that we just attached to the table saw. We'll attach this using 2 3-inch carriage bolts, 2 more spacers, and of course we're going to use 2 nuts. Make sure to align the wheel assembly with this bend facing up, and your target is going to be this hole right in the bend. So the first thing you'll do is feed a bolt, a carriage bolt, through the sides. You'll make sure to insert your spacer between the tubing. It's best not to drop the spacer. Then you will secure with one of our nuts. You'll repeat the same process on the other side. Carriage bolt, spacer, then through the hole in the wheel assembly. Secured by a nut. You'll tighten the nuts before moving on to the next step. At this point, you should have 2 3-inch carriage bolts, 2 spacers, and 2 nuts left. To finish the connection of the wheel assembly, we must cut the retainer strap and raise this portion to bring it level with where the wheel assembly can be attached. You'll use your 3-inch carriage bolts, feed them through, use your spacer, feed it all the way through and secure it with a nut. Then you'll tighten with a wrench or socket. You'll perform the same exercise on the other side. So at this point, it's the moment of truth. We're going to grab it by the handles, lift the table saw, remove it from the tray. Now your table saw is on the stand and ready for the next step of the setup. According to the instructions, this next step is really important. We need to release the locking mechanism, turn the saw all the way to 45 degrees in order to be able to reach under and pull out packing material. And there you have it. For our next step, the instructions say we need to install the height adjustment knob and the hex bolt. So we go to our top tray and I find the height adjustment knob and what appears to be the bolt that's described in the instructions. One thing I did notice though is although they call it a hex bolt, it has the lead for the knob to turn, has the threads, but on the end it is a Phillips head, not a hex as described in the instructions. Here we attach the height adjustment knob with the bolt provided, and I'm going to be using a Phillips screwdriver, and this will go to the wheel here. So off camera I went around the entire saw with it standing and tightened all the screws per the instruction, checking the screw tightness from the factory. Once I have all those secured, now we're going to be behind the saw, pull out this extension. We're going to install these hex screws that come with the saw using a hex wrench, and this is an important step. From the factory, the riving knife is shipped in a lower position for non-through cuts. To adjust that, we're going to have to unlock the tilt, go back to the 90-degree position, lock that. Then we're going to have to reach in here and loosen a knob. You can see a knob on the right-hand side of the riving knife. That's going to have to be loosened in order to adjust it upward. Before adjusting the knife, need to advance the saw to its highest position. Once at its highest position, I should be able to reach in, loosen the knob, pressing on the knob and lifting the riving knife to adjust it. There are locks along the way to adjust for different heights. Once I adjust it at the through cut height, I tighten the knob to lock it into place. To install the blade, I will need to acquire the wrenches stored on the right hand side of the saw. There's a wing nut that I loosen, and then I can take the wrenches off of the saw and use them to install the included blade. I'll put the wing nut back on for storage. The saw comes with a blade that's in the top tray for storage. Never touch the teeth of the blade to the metal of the saw or any metal in the saw. The teeth are should not be put to that strain. To install the blade, we will first need to take the nut and the washer off. The blade itself has arrows indicating which way it turns. You should always put the turning direction towards the front of the saw. Carefully lower it into position. Once it's firmly on there, you can apply the washer. Flat side towards the saw blade, and then the nut. You want to hand tighten the nut first. And the two wrenches are designed, one with a closed end, one with an open end. The open end goes on this side of the saw and can secure as such. The closed end goes on this side, and then you securely tighten it. Do not over tighten. To install the throat plate, we will first need to lower the saw blade. When installing the throat plate, you'll notice there's a lip on the back of it which must be inserted first so that the front lip can then click into place. You will also notice inside the throat there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 screws. These screws are not for fastening the throat plate to the saw, but are for adjusting the saws and to make it level. You can access these screws here until you can noticeably feel that everything is level. Right now this saw is not level and needs adjustment. We are not adjusting during this video. The anti-kickback paws reduce the chance of kickback. They have these very sharp tenons here, and it attaches to your riving knife, and what it does is as the wood comes through, if it tries to back up, these paws might help prevent that from happening, thus preventing kickback. To install these paws, it has a button on the side that must be pushed in. Whenever that is pushed in, then in the middle slot on your riving knife, you can align it, allowing this to click into place. At that point, these are spring-loaded and are there for your protection. The blade guard has a slot in the back of the blade guard, and you can see a metal post in there. So you can take that, slide it on the back hook here of your riving knife as it slides up and into position where it can no longer be lifted straight up. Then you move it forward, press the front down, and select this blue lever, and then it is locked into position. To remove the blade guard, you lift this blue lever, lift from the front, and then the claws will release and allow you to remove it. To remove an anti-kickback feature, press this silver button all the way through, lift up, and these can be removed. You can see the riving knife, how it has 3 slots that support these features. So hey everybody, that's it for the build. As far as the assembly, it's complete. I've taken all the attachments and attached them to the side storage places. I'm going to lower the saw and call it a day. The next video I'm going to work on is a video talking about setup, how to align the blade to the miter slots, how to get the fence on squarely, how to make sure everything is fine-tuned, the throat plate adjustment. Then I'm going to do a review and talk about the features that I like of this saw, some things I don't really like. And this is a new buyer's review. And then the plan is to follow up with that a year or 2 later. Pretty soon it's going to be time to get some woodworking done. But I'm happy with the purchase or the gift for Father's Day, and I'm happy that it's come together today. And I hope this video was beneficial to you, and that you would consider subscribing so that you can watch those follow-up videos. Ooh, I hear my wife calling. I gotta go.
Hi guys, it's me. It's me.
The nut that came
Yep.
with.
And hi.
You can't interrupt the video. You're so funny.
I know I'm funny.
The blade comes in a plastic wrapper on top of tray number 2, the top tray.
And be careful with it. And always have an adult if you're a little kid who wants to build a table saw. Like 17 or so, you're too young for that.
Washer on, flat side towards, put the,
So they can see part of your famous beard.
no, leave it right where it is. Please don't move it. Okay, now don't touch the stand because it shakes. Okay, you're moving it around too much.
I'm getting it where you can see the saw better. There.